try and tell you to try and eat fresh. So that keeps it, our food healthy. But again, you have choices, right? There's no reason to not be having enough vegetables in your diet. Being busy is not a good enough reason. It's an excuse. If you don't want to chop, then buy it already prepared. If you don't want to be doing that, or get someone else to do it for you. Maybe you trade off jobs. Okay?
I'll tell you this one little story. When I was working full-time, I was a single parent and really busy, and there was some other people on staff that over lunch we decided to do a meal exchange.
Excellent.
So we
Love
would
it.
cook 3 casseroles on the weekend, freeze them, then you'd bring them to work, and you'd get 2 new ones, and then you just added a salad or a vegetable or whatever. And it lasted for
Awesome.
probably 6 months, but it was a really, you didn't have a lot of choice about what you were gonna get, but it was great. The casseroles were going back and forth, and you had something new that you wouldn't have cooked yourself, which worked out really well.
Great idea.
For a while, it was kind of portioned for 2 people. And yeah, so it's a thought.
Yeah, and that's where earlier when I said, invite friends over, invite a girlfriend over one night if you're going to get together and socialize anyway. Plan something that you can do together. Talk about it in advance, of course, but plan to do some food prep together. Sure, you can drink your glass of wine and have your social time, but do something together so that it's getting done, right? Make it a fun activity for you, if that's something that you can do. So we're going to switch into talking about some recipe makeovers. Any other thoughts or questions around creating healthy meals and meal planning? So we know what we need to do in order to meal plan, right? You need to commit to it, you need to sit down, think about your week, what can you be preparing. There's lots of additional information, that package I gave you, about food preparation tips. So to save you time and money, and there's lots of techniques, lots of things to think about. Okay, so there are like 3 pages full of additional food prep tips that you can review and start applying today. Some of them are like, oh, I never even thought of that, right? So lots of things that you may not have thought of. And lots of really random, right? So there's just lots of things that that can help. And I will also post a few additional lists of tips and things that you can be doing for your kitchen, your pantry, your shopping, things like that. They didn't print very well, so I will post them and you can have those. Okay, so let's talk about recipe makeovers. Does anyone bring recipes with them? Or you have a recipe in your brain that you want to talk about?
Well, I made over that recipe that I gave you last week,
brought that.
which is the it's pasta shells stuffed with shredded chicken and lemon and
Lemon chicken stuffed shells.
yeah.
Okay, so we took the what out?
So we took out the cream cheese.
Okay.
And I added the yogurt,
Yeah.
which you suggested.
Okay.
My husband said they tasted exactly the same as the ones we had a couple of weeks ago.
Excellent.
And what I also did was finally cut a bunch of celery and green onions and added that in, so it was a lot less fat and you got a little more crunch with the vegetables in there. And I made the whole box of shells, which was 40 shells, I think. So
Great.
we had 2 meals of that, and I've got a big container in the freezer for our next party.
Awesome.
So Yeah. And I bought
So-
the chicken, the rotisserie chicken, at the grocery store,
Great.
and then just shredded that up.
Rotisserie chicken is fine, right?
Yeah, and I took off all the skin.
Great. Excellent.
Yeah, and it was the healthier option. They had two different kinds of chicken.
Yep.
There, I guess one was
Perfect.
organic and
Yep.
less than, yeah, so works
So-
great.
So there you go. Quite often in recipes, you can swap out, so just that simple swap of taking the cream cheese out and using, do you use full fat yogurt?
Yeah.
Yeah, plain full fat yogurt,
Yeah.
you eliminated a whole bunch of fat. Saturated fat, because remember when we talked about cream cheese in one of our classes, it's really high in saturated
Yeah,
fat.
and he couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah. And that's usually the case. In recipes like that where you're mixing in a bunch of stuff together, you can usually just swap it out. So in our handout, there's some things that we can talk about just to recipe makeovers. And then I also added some list of herbs and spices. What goes with what? What herbs and spices taste like? Like what are the notes, the things that they give you? And what are they good with? Okay, so most people don't know.
Oh,
Should be the last page. Yeah, sorry, the new
New one.
anyways. Yes. So if you're always wondering what they taste like and what goes with what, this is just a list to help you. Okay, so herbs and spices are a great way of flavoring without adding sodium or fat or sweetener. Okay, because a lot of herbs and spices have notes that give us flavors that can satisfy us exactly the same way, okay? So if a recipe is calling for things like fats or sugar or sodium, you can usually reduce all of them, okay? Or swap out. So in the case of cream cheese, you can use full-fat plain yogurt instead, in most cases. Anyone else bring a recipe they want to talk about? Or no recipe they want to talk about?
This one's in my head. It's,
Yep.
it's kind of like a Saturday or late treat kind of thing. I take a papaya, cut it in half,
Mhm.
and then mix shrimp with a creamy salad dressing,
Okay.
and add dill, and then put that inside the papaya.
Mm.
So the shrimp and the creamy dressing
Inside, but so the
inside the papaya.
so the papaya is still in its whole state,
It's half a papaya.
and you scoop it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That is very tasty.
I was just going to say that sounds really good. Okay. Could we change it?
I think it's the creamy salad dressing, and I don't know, the portion of half a papaya, is that too much sugar?
Yeah, papayas are going to be they're tropical, so they're going to be higher in sugar. So what could we do?
Cantaloupe instead.
So you could change out the fruit, but sticking with papaya, because papaya has a unique flavor, scoop some of the flesh out and use it for something else, right? So you have less.
To do like a quarter of a papaya.
Yeah, you could do
instead of half.
quarter. Yep, that would be fine. Because again, you want you still want the flavor of the original ingredients if you can. So the dressing. So you're buying a dressing.
Yeah, it's whatever's in the fridge. It's creamy cucumber or
Okay.
ranch or.
Yeah. So it's the creamy part.
Yeah.
That is giving us the fat, okay? So you could, just trying to think of the best way
Could
to
you
go.
use whole fat yogurt?
Yeah, you could make your own version, for sure. And again, you can go online and Google healthier cream dressings, yeah. So yes, changing to yogurt or even buttermilk would be, it's gonna give you a bit of tang, it's gonna give you some thickness. It's different than milk itself, cream itself. Any thoughts on how we would change this? So it's the dressing for the most part. Sorry, what's the protein? Shrimp?
Shrimp.
Shrimp, okay.
Lime or lemon with a little olive oil, just a really simple.
Yeah,
Vinaigrette.
making a vinaigrette, yeah. So if you whip that, oil and lemon juice, even a little bit of white wine vinegar might give it a bit more acidity. But if you whip it, it becomes thicker, right? I would also add, so this would be me putting my chef hat on, I would add like shredded cabbage or fennel or something with crunch and another flavor to that. And maybe even add, so it's shrimp, maybe even add sesame seeds or something on the top, or chopped cashews, or something with, again, that whole texture thing. So you're adding vegetables to it, and you're adding a little bit more proteins and fats to it, right? I like it, it sounds amazing. So defat the dressing, and then maybe add a little something to it. Even bean sprouts would give it crunch, right? So something that adds a little bit of crunch to it is, I think I would, anyway.
You could deconstruct it all together, so you're controlling a pie portion and then put it on a bed of butter lettuce or something
Yeah.
mild. So it's more salad,
That
less
would be
fruit.
good.
Save money too.
Yeah, that would be good.
How
That
about
sounds amazing.
sesame oil versus olive oil?
So sesame oil, yes, you would use less of it because it's very, the flavor. So yes, choosing an oil that has more flavor and use less of it. Excuse me, definitely. It does sound, doesn't that sound good?
And shrimp, something.
Oh, you know what else I was
Lime
thinking?
juice.
Either in the dressing or
And dill. Oh, and
dill, right, yeah. In the dressing or when you're making the shrimp, do something spicy like ginger. Powdered ginger or fresh ginger a little bit. That would be good. Right, again, different flavors, different textures, that's what we're going for when you're cooking. And that's so basic. Sounds yummy. Any other recipes? So Maureen's, both recipes, but making a healthier substitution, right? So a recipe calls for, it's easier with non-baking. So when you're baking is chemistry, right? So certain things have to go together in order to create whatever it is you're making. But in other types of, so like, entrees or dinner meals and that kind of thing, you can usually swap out things easily enough and not change the recipe itself, right? Baking is it's more fussy. You can delete ingredients, right? Some ingredients you don't even need. Okay, so think about that. Changing your method of preparation. So what would be an example of making something healthier? How you're cooking or preparing it.
Steam it instead of fry it.
Yeah, yeah, anything that creates, that you have to add oils or butters or marinades with fats in them, those types of things, and then you're frying in oil, yes, you can change your method to something else. Broiling, grilling, steaming, those kinds of things. Changing the portion size, of course. It's okay to make any recipe as it is, and then we have a smaller portion of it, right? So it's always an option to have whatever it is that you're choosing, it's a choice. So you know what's in it if you're making it, and then you have a smaller portion of it. With sugar, anything that calls for sugar, any form of sugar can usually automatically be cut in half. Any sweetener, unless it's a recipe you're getting from me, it's already been cut, so don't make it any less. But yeah, most recipes that call for sugar, you can use less. What about a healthy version of sugar? So if a recipe is going to baking now, if a recipe calls for white sugar, what could you use instead?
Brown.
Okay, so brown sugar is still white sugar with some molasses added to it. So it's still the same sugar impact, but then you get some nutrients because molasses has B vitamins. Okay, What else?
Could use maple syrup
Yep,
or.
you could use a more natural,
agave syrup.
agave, honey, maple syrup, all options. Pureed fruit, right? Fruit is high in sugar. Pureed fruit is often, a fat replacer is often unsweetened applesauce. It's the consistency or the texture that you're looking for versus the fat. You don't taste the fat in most baking. So you can replace applesauce with, take out some of the fats. But sugar is the automatic one. And in recipes like, dinner meals, you can eliminate the salt altogether and add salt after, right? Salt is to taste, so you don't have to add the teaspoon that they're calling for. And be aware of some of the condiments that also have sodium, right? So if you're adding condiments to a dressing or marinade of some kind, or ingredients in a, where you're mixing things in, think about how much salt or sodium is in the products that you're using before you add more salt, right? So you can buy low sodium versions of everything. And I always recommend trying to get less sodium in the ingredients and then add more natural sodium from sea salt or something that is naturally salty versus a whole bunch of sodium from things. Once it's in there, you can't take it out, but you can certainly add it, right?
How about the sweeteners like stevia and those other, what's a better?
Stevia would be the first one from natural sugar because it still comes from a plant. It's a very sweet leaf. It is processed, right? So is white sugar. You know what a sugar cane looks like. It's nothing like the white stuff that we buy to use as sugar. So stevia would be the first one that I would say, sure, go ahead. It's very sweet. I think it's 300 or 400 times sweeter than sugar, so you're using much less of it. But it's also processed, right? You're not eating a leaf, right? You're eating powdered, processed. Most of the others are chemically made.
Yeah.
So Splenda is white sugar that has been chemically altered to create what it is. So it's a chemical versus a natural.
Yeah.
Small amounts of all of those things because they are, your body still has to process it. Any amount of something that's chemical is certainly going to be an impact on the body. Wow, we are running out of time. Any other thoughts or questions? So can we do some meal planning now? Do we have some good tips, some ideas, some things that we can try?
I think we'll all be having this papaya salad.
I think so. That's going to be a
I know, it'll be on my grocery
huge
list.
addition. Yeah.
Well, avocado and prawns are lovely.
Oh yes. Yeah. Avocado is amazing. It's very creamy. It's got that really creamy, yummy texture.
But yes, that one's a good one.
Yeah. That's
A treat, you did say it was a treat.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be. It can be part of a, a well-planned meal, right? A little bit less of the sugar, a little bit more of other, create balance, right? Again, that's what it's about. It's okay to have some of those things that we know are higher in sugar or fats or whatever the thing is. We want to create some balance there, which is great. Hiding vegetables, that's what I wanted to touch on.
Yes.
Hiding vegetables in things. So if you're making smoothies, add them in. If you're making sauces, shred them, add them in,
Yes.
right? To get more servings of vegetables. And we can do this for ourselves as well, not just for, fussy kids who don't eat like
Even
vegetables.
like chilies and spaghetti sauces and
Yeah.
curries, but that veggie on the plate.
So get it in, hide it in other ways. Yeah. And we do what we have to do, right? Good. Okay, how are we feeling now? We have some good tips.
Ready
Awesome.
to go plan.
Excellent. Planning is good. Remember, if we fail to plan, we plan to fail. Keep it simple, right? Focus on one thing at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. one meal at a time. Yay, I like the stickers. Love it. And I will, like I said, I have lots of stuff to post, right? So I will create an email and I will send that out with all kinds of things that give you more tips. Take some time to read through all the food prep tips. Some of them, again, you just don't, you think to yourself, why didn't I think of that before, right? Save time. Food prep, that's what we want, okay?